Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on reaching the next generation of sales professionals. I'm Adamson, Head of Corporate Relations for Baylor University Center for Professional Selling. And joining me today on this webinar is Dr. Andrea Dixon, who heads up the center's program and also engages with the faculty leaders at other university sales centers. Thank you for joining us today. Just a bit of housekeeping first. If you have any questions that you'd like to pose during today's conference, please type your questions as they arise in the chat box, which by default will be on the left-hand side of your screen. We will share some interesting data and answer your questions as they arise. Now, Andrea, will you please share with today's audience the background on today's webinar?
Thanks, Amber, and hello to all of our company participants today. By way of background, Baylor University serves as a founding member of the University Sales Center Alliance, which is a consortium of schools who work to advance the field of professional selling. USCA members meet twice a year to discuss issues and share best practices. During a recent USCA meeting, several side conversations arose concerning the graduates of sales programs and the recruiting efforts being used by large sales organizations. As a result of that conversation, we developed a survey and developed today's webinar to address some key questions to help our audience. First of all, what are the priorities of today's 22-year-old almost graduate? And how do these individuals want to be recruited by companies as they prepare to enter the workforce? The research is also designed to help you think about meaningful messages that you might use to reach this generation, and to consider how to make your internship experience for your sales interns more meaningful as well. The data that we're reporting on today is quite rich, where we have students and recent graduates from sales programs from more than 15 universities. As you can see on the screen here, we have a sample of more than 300 current juniors and seniors from sales programs, as well as more than 200 recent graduates of sales programs. The participating University Sales Center Alliance schools represent a very broad spectrum of public universities, private universities, faith-based universities, and female-focused educational institutions as well.
So what did the research reveal about these students and recent graduates' priorities?
Well, Amber, for both sets of respondents, family is their #1 priority. Interestingly, current students place school and getting a good job well ahead of their friends, work, and their faith. Among recent graduates, or those who've been out of school for less than 1 year, friends and work become more important. What was surprising to us, though, was the fact that these were statistically equivalent, friends and work were. So as these new sales professionals embark on their careers, they place their family first, and then they prioritize their work and their friendships. So we actually explored these partnerships in a second way, which I'd like to share now. We asked both current sales students and recent graduates to help us understand how they define a good job by identifying their top 5 priorities in the area of the job. And at the very top for both groups is the opportunity for advancement within the company.
What about pay?
Well, high earnings potential was #2 in importance for current students, but it slipped to actually a distant 3rd place among recent graduates. This issue that we continue to hear aligned with this generation is the issue of work-life balance. And it makes sense when you consider that their #1 life priority is their family. And upon graduation, they place equal importance on their friends as they do on their work.
What about location?
Well, 4 in 10 current students prioritize location. But this drops to actually 3 in 10 among recent graduates. I think the data show that today's students are truly more willing to move for their careers. They'll benefit as they move forward from having good mentors who help them understand how to balance family, friends, distance, and their work careers.
Well, this is an exciting story, really, for today's corporations looking to hire this next generation. Well, working with companies to recruit these young people, I know they are interested in tapping into this talent. What else did you learn from this research?
Well, we asked students about their desired modes of contact by companies, both for initial contact as well as for follow-up contact. Not surprisingly, students, like the rest of us, value the rich communication opportunity that face-to-face meetings and interviews provide. However, there's some great news on the horizon for companies considering their recruiting budgets. Students are increasingly comfortable with digital channels for both interviews and information sessions. On a scale of 0 to 5 regarding comfort level, we find that the average comfort levels for phone and web-based contacts are both on the positive end. Even more importantly, very few students indicated a high level of discomfort in connecting with students via phone or web for both interview and information sessions. That's a real savings for recruiting budgets.
Well, I've been pleased with the results we're seeing here at Baylor in working with companies to provide web chat information sessions as well as web-based interviews. And we also appreciate the great technical support that Baylor staff provides us.
Well, Amber, we also asked students about how they like to learn about companies when thinking beyond the company information session.
Oh, I see some really student-directed activities here. So students want to drive the information search process through networking, looking at company websites, and scrolling through LinkedIn?
Well, that's one way of looking at this, Amber. Another way to consider these data is that perhaps our university, college, and our sales program websites score lower in these areas, not necessarily because of student preference. Perhaps these numbers reflect the quality of the websites and the experiences that we're providing to our students. As you know, we have job postings available to our students at Baylor on both our Center for Professional Selling website as well as on the university level website. But I'm not so sure that we're creating a seamless or easy to manage experience for our sales students in this area.
Right, and I'm looking forward to tackling that issue and making it even easier for our sales students to connect with strong sales organizations as we leverage the insights from these data. Well, we know that students need to learn about job opportunities, but they also need to understand how the various opportunities might best fit with who they are and how they're hardwired. It's clear that students are interested in learning from sales professionals and industry through a variety of means. I see the research identified mentoring programs and job shadowing opportunities as valuable tools for learning about jobs and internships. Yes, Amber, and that's exciting to see as many of the USCA schools require their sales students to complete a real sales internship as part of their sales programs. I think it's also instructive to see that companies can engage with this next generation of sales professionals through practice interviews and practice phone conversations is really a way to help them along in the career exploration process. Both of these approaches, along with the concept of virtual mentoring, which is noted on the screen, they'll allow the sales professional to connect with our sales students from the comfort of their offices, once again allowing them to keep their recruiting budgets low and also impact the next generation. I'm really glad that this research examines student preferences in the areas of recruiter contacts. My sense has been that we were experiencing some alignment issues, and these data support my intuition. Well, Amber, I was surprised to see these data. Students clearly want to be contacted to set up interviews and to hear the results of their interviews through 3 key channels. They want to hear from companies by phone, email, and through their faculty. After those top 3, student preferences for the other forms of contact drop dramatically. So students really don't want companies contacting them via Twitter, Facebook, or text? And that's what these data show. Students apparently see those media as perhaps more personal and not professional forms of contact. And they appear to not want to be contacted by recruiters and company representatives via those forms of social media or via texting. Well, would these social media play a role in students learning about companies? Well, we asked students and recent graduates about the effectiveness of various sources for learning about companies. And company websites and company-sponsored videos were the top approaches that companies have control over and can direct student learning. Company Facebook pages and Twitter, and even those cute little QR codes that show up at the bottom of the list in terms of effectiveness for learning about companies? Yes, they do. Now, we'll have to track student perceptions of these issues over time. It can be that they show up at the bottom of the list because of the newness of the approach. But we'll track those results over time and see how they might change. Absolutely, that makes sense. Now, I see the last area that we will explore concerns sales internships. And I see the data suggests that internships are happening earlier in the students' college experiences.
It was interesting to see these data from across a variety of schools. We had seen this movement begin at Baylor about 18 months ago, and now the data reaffirm for us that this is more of an industry phenomenon. In fact, among recent graduates, 68% completed one sales internship, but almost half, 48% of them, completed 2 or more sales internships. So the competition for students is heating up, and it's heating up earlier in the student's college process. And that's not just for internships. Competition for students is intense as the job search process also shifts to earlier and earlier. 80% of students began their job search process 5 months before graduation or earlier. The data show what recent graduates of sales programs had on average 2.8 job offers. And that aligns with our experience here at Baylor, where our spring grads in 2012 had an average of 3.2 job offers per student. And half of all of those job offers are coming out of internships. Another point that's worth mentioning is that 72% of all of these internships are paid sales internships.
Right, and that last point that you mentioned, I think it should be noted that that figure will vary by school, since some schools like Baylor will only allow students to complete paid sales internships. Well, as we looked at internships, we also asked the participants to assess their internship experience along several dimensions. And the interesting result in this area of questioning was not in the average or mean response, but it was actually in the variance associated with these data. You mean that the average responses were not interesting? Well, the averages for the assessment areas were fairly similar across these different rating scales. What we found was the variation in response to the items listed on this screen was pretty strong. What this means is students apparently had very different experiences in key areas of compensation, in particular what they perceived to be the fairness of the compensation. There was a lot of variance in the clarity of their assignments and responsibilities. And there was great variance in the extent to which their supervisor was engaged in their personal development. Gosh, these sound like some of the same issues that are reported for employee satisfaction surveys. Well, they are, Amber. And students take their internship employment quite seriously. Well, are the students adequately prepared for their internships? Well, on the whole, students in recent grads feel quite prepared for their sales internship experiences. What we're reporting on this screen are the areas in which they feel underprepared. Current students and recent grads note that prospecting is one of the most challenging areas for them, an area in which their curriculum is not necessarily preparing them for success. Sales call interactions are also a bit daunting for interns and recent graduates. You know, I would think that participation in sales competitions would be one strategy for tackling that area. Oh, I agree. Now, it looks like this slide provides the USCA and our other university partners with some opportunity for strengthening the student experience. I'm really glad this research was designed to provide our corporate partners with valuable information and also keep our universities working to create top talent. Well, we are all interested in preparing the next generation of sales professionals and in impacting the sales profession. Absolutely, and one of our goals today was to provide our corporate partners and interested parties with information to help them be effective in their jobs. You know, I really appreciate the role that I play in working with companies and helping them to access the talent that a sales program like Baylor's is designed to deliver. Now, this brings us to the end of our formal program today, and we'll entertain any questions that people might have at this time. Okay, and if we have no questions, we thank you for joining us today for the webinar, and we look forward to working with you in the future as we prepare the next generation of sales talent to join your organizations. Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful day.